There's a guy by the name of Paul Coughlin. He's a founder of an organisation called Protectors, and it's a faith-based organisation that combats adolescent bullying. And he would estimate that 89% of children walk away from a bullying situation, and a measly 11% would take a stand for their mates. 89%. I think it's really important in the culture of that whole concept of bullying is that we actually take a stand. That we do take a stand. We take a stand as parents, and we take a stand even in our family, and we even encourage our children to take a stand, as big as what that may be, when a situation is going on. And there's lots of ways, there's lots of pathways, like Jane was talking about ways that we can make a stand. But to take a stand, or do we just get caught in the crowd? Like these couple of verses from the Bible would say, do not follow the crowd in doing wrong, do not pervert justice by siding with the crowd. Don't want to do that. You know, when we talk about bullying is a justice issue. It's a justice issue. It really is. And when there's a situation of justice, the way to combat that is to take a stand. And it's appropriate to take a stand. I love this. Before I get into that, I was confronted even with this kind of, in a brutal way, just last week. We just moved up to Tumby, some of you know that, and we needed to get something before school, and so I went down to the local Coles at Killarney Vale, and I got there with about 2 minutes before it opened, so it's just before 7 o'clock. And just like here at Kincumber, there's all these school kids around, and there was about 5 guys, and 4 of these guys were sitting on this bench under a tree, just out in front of Coles. Some other people kind of stand around waiting for the sliding doors to open. And I pulled up, I drove into the car park, and it was one of those times where you go, am I actually seeing what I think I'm seeing or not? This one guy, they're about 15, these guys. One guy he just punched one of these guys that hard in the face that he fell backwards off the chair and hit the back of his head on this tree root. And it was like, what's going on? And so obviously parked my car, started going over there. You know what? None of his mates did anything. None of the people waiting at the shop did anything. And I'm all over. Then I hear this screeching, and there was this Commodore that come flying round the corner into the car park. 2 guys in their 20s yelling their guts out at this guy. I can't tell you what they said because it was pretty colourful, but they were, get away from him. What are you doing? You go, you effing. They got stuck, and this guy bolted. It was such a contrast for me to see the difference between people not knowing what to do and not making a stand to a stranger making a stand on behalf of someone they never knew. And as you will see, we're going to explore tonight about with bullying, it's really important that we stand together. And there's different elements of standing together and different people that can stand together. But before we can stand together, we need to take a stand. And bullying is a justice issue, and it's appropriate to take a stand for justice issues. I love this in Psalms. It talks about the Lord gives righteousness and justice to all treated unfairly. You know what I've seen sometimes in a Christian culture, and whether you have a faith or not, the school is a Christian school, and so there's a Christian culture here. Sometimes in a Christian culture, we can get just a little bit confused, I think, sometimes in going, you know what, I think when something happens that's bad, I'm called to turn the other cheek. And so I will, just turn the other cheek, and I get smashed, and I just turn the other cheek and I get smashed. And I don't think that's at the essence of that verse. That verse in Matthew where Jesus talks about turning the other cheek is true. Absolutely, it's from Jesus. But it's really about not retaliating and not taking revenge. It's not about not taking a stand when there's a justice issue, and bullying is a justice issue. And so I remember we even talked about this on Friday, and you could kind of sense that there was even some confusion about that concept. You know, do I just turn the other cheek and just step back into relationships, and therefore I'm subject to bullying on a continual basis because I'm just doing the right thing. I'm just turning the other cheek. Turning the other cheek doesn't mean you don't do anything. You can take a stand against bullying because it is a justice issue. You know, we're not doormats. We don't allow people to abuse us, which bullying is like that. We can take a stand, and we can take a strong stand sometimes without retaliating and without bringing revenge. You know, take a stand, like to go, even to teach our kids language sometimes, like that's not okay, that's not cool, doesn't have to look like that. You know, hey mate, stop. Or even to take a more safer option sometimes is there's pathways. I need help email. What a great example in the school. Anyone can email that, can't they? Is it actually an email address that says I need help at? So it is. So that can happen 24/7. Someone can send an email to that. There's lots of ways we can take a stand to go, you know, it's not okay, that's not cool, that's wrong, mate, doesn't have to look like this. Yep. It's risky, but it's courageous to take a stand. And bullying can happen anywhere. It may not happen at this school, but it can happen in your street. We just moved the place we moved from, not that it was really a reason that we moved. There was one of our neighbours there that significantly got stuck into our kids. We've got 4 kids from, 17, not that Ash was out there playing on the street, but 15 down to 7. And this neighbour would have a go at my kids and yell at him because the ball went over his fence. And so I said to him, hey, I took a stand, mate, if you got an issue with my kids, you come talk to me. And that escalated to a point where he was getting stuck into my kids again, and he come to my door and was getting stuck into my kids in front of me at my door. And I stepped out, I took a stand, and I just spoke into the situation. It was very interesting. I thought I was going to get decked. He was saying things to me, you're a pathetic worm of a person, I don't care about your effing kids, all this stuff, I've got my boxing gloves, come out the backyard, we'll settle this right now, all this stuff. He was this close to my face, but you know what? I'm taking a stand for my kids because it's a justice issue. I didn't retaliate. I didn't swing a punch because I probably would have got decked. But to take a stand on behalf, I don't. When it comes to your kids, would you take a stand? I do all the time. And not that it looks different every time, but it's important to take a stand because it's a justice issue. And to teach our kids it's okay to take a stand for that, to stand up for our mates. Wouldn't it be amazing to see that stat move from 11% of kids or youth to take a stand when one of their mates are getting bullied? Wouldn't it be great to see that move? 20%, 30%, 50%. Then when something's going on, there's a culture of, no, we're taking a stand against this. Has anyone heard of an organisation called IJM? It stands for International Justice Ministries. It's an interesting organisation, not-for-profit organisation, and what they do, they go into developing countries where there is no justice system at all and crime is rampant, and they bring a justice system. Now, it's not a fully developed justice system. It's not as good as what we have in Australia or anywhere else, but there is a system. And you know what happens? The presence of a justice system sees crime and violence diminish just because someone has taken a stand and there's a presence of justice. Imagine the difference if we took a stand against bullying and even our kids were courageous enough to say, hey, that's not okay. Hey, mate, that's what's going on there. And then if we can gain momentum in that space, we will see some breakthrough things. Another couple of things just to throw in the mix is this, that another area I think we can have a little bit of confusion around is that there's a real difference between forgiveness and trust. They're different things completely. So if there's a situation of bullying going on in your world in whatever form, God's going to call you to forgive the people that are actually bullying. But you can forgive someone But they've got to earn your trust back. That's completely different. Just because you forgive someone doesn't mean you step back into a relationship full on and get bullied again. Yep, trust is earned over times. And sometimes there's relationships where, you know what, there is no trust in that relationship, so therefore I'm not going to step into that relationship. And even for our kids to understand that, hey, we're called to forgive people, but you know what, you don't have to be their best mate. You might even be in the same class, but you don't have to hang out with them. Because forgiveness and trust are different issues, and for us to understand that is really key. Another thing that really key is that we're actually called to love our enemies. And that's pretty hard. But we're called to love our enemies. And so to pray for our enemies even. There's a lady here on Friday who was saying that her daughter, who's experienced some bullying, naturally prayed for the person who was bullying her. Isn't that incredible? Doesn't make it right. You can take a stand because it's a justice issue, and you can speak into it, and you can forgive, and you don't have to be in a relationship, or you just allow that trust to be earned over time and trust it in small things. But to pray for our enemies. Just to wrap up, there's a couple of things. Imagine this culture. Oh, this one's key. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Ensure justice for those being crushed. I mean, that's a concept. That's what I did for my kids. There was a massive power imbalance, and they didn't know what to say. They didn't know what to do, so I spoke up for them. And so we speak up for those who can't speak for whatever reason, especially in that power imbalance space. And there's a whole bunch of people that can stand with you in that. But here's this. You've heard this, the greatest commandment. Does everyone know the greatest commandment? Yep. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and your strength. This is the first and greatest commandment. Second is like this. Love your neighbour as yourself. Everything hangs on these two commandments. That's what it looks like. So bullying is totally against that. It's a justice issue. Love God, heart, soul, mind, strength. Love your neighbour as yourself. And so that's the picture. That's the model. Everything else hangs off that. Here's another interesting scenario. Has anyone heard of this? Oh, it's not the greatest commandment. It's the golden rule. I still haven't picked. Anyone heard the golden rule? Yeah? Do to others what you'd like them to do to you. This is the essence of all that's taught in the law and prophets. Again, this is the essence of all that's written in God's word, really. You know how I think we read this sometimes? It's like, do not do to others what you wouldn't like them to do to you. I think that's how we read that most of the time. You see in your family, if you've got a few kids and one of the boys got a cricket bat and he's belting his sister over the head with a cricket bat, and it's like, hey, do you like getting hit over the head with a cricket bat? Well, don't do it to your sister. That's how I think we read that most of the time, and it does include that, but it's different to that. If you look at that, it says, do to others what you would like them to do to you. It's a very proactive piece that says, hey, think about the things that you would like done to you. And that's what we're called to do for others. And I know that if I was in a bullying situation, I would want somebody to take a stand with me. That's what I would want. If I was in a place where I feel I couldn't speak because I was powerless because of a power imbalance, and there was consistent, repetitive bullying with an intent to harm, and I felt I couldn't do it myself, I would want somebody to do to me what I would like to be done. Take a stand with me and for me. And so I think it's really important that we understand that we actually take a stand against bullying. And it's okay to take a stand against bullying. It's actually very appropriate to take a stand because it's a justice issue. And I want to do to others what I'd like them to do for me.